a leader in the fight for individual liberty and limited government and free markets, a warrior unafraid to stand his ground, a man of action who established the formidable Senate Conservatives Fund to get more principled conservatives elected. Now, fast forward to last year, and word that this most formidable conservative had decided to leave the Senate and accept the position of president at the Heritage Foundation. Now, I suspect I wasn't alone in my reaction. I said, "Oh no, he's leaving the Senate. Oh great, he's going to Heritage. Oh no, he's leaving the Senate. Oh great, he's going to Heritage." Talk about ambivalence. The only unfortunate thing is that he cannot be both a senator and the president of the Heritage Foundation. He needs no further introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, Senator Jim DeMint.
My name is Jim, and I'm a recovering politician. Actually, I heard a real story of recovery just Thursday night, just a couple of nights ago. The guy's name was Antoine Walker, and he was in his 30s, gave a speech. He grew up not knowing his father around Capitol Hill with all the gangs. He started taking drugs when he was 14, took drugs for 17 years, in and out of battles with the law. His best friend was killed. Finally got thrown in jail for carjacking. And in jail, he met someone who was talking about something he was going to do after he got out. He wanted to get to be a part of a group called Ready, Willing, and Working. And I really didn't know much about it until I went to this event the other night. They were actually honoring Phil Trueluck at the Heritage Foundation and the Heritage's work on the Hill. So we went to this annual event, annual fundraiser, and halfway through it, this guy dressed in blue, working clothes, got up, Antoine Walker, and gave a speech and told the story of his life. And he talked about when he was in jail, after living his life as he did, that he had dreamed before of selling drugs, making a lot of money, becoming a millionaire, having the fancy cars. But by the time he got to jail and hit bottom, what he really wanted to be was legit. That's the word he used. He wanted to have real work, legal work. He wanted to have the personal satisfaction of having a job and doing things the way he was supposed to do things. He wanted to be legit. It was an interesting word. But this gathering was so inspiring. There were 30 men dressed in blue. That's what they're called, men in blue on Capitol Hill. The organization's been around about 6 or 7 years. And they're working in an area of Capitol Hill that used to be, just a few years ago, blighted. I mean, really, it was dangerous, very few businesses. But a few people put together this organization to help ex-cons, drug addicts, homeless, to get their feet on the ground. And so they take about 30 at a time, and they give them counseling, fellowship, training. Most importantly, they give them a job. And a job, a lot of times, is walking down the sidewalk, emptying trash, cleaning up the leaves, keeping the place nice. But what they have found is not only have they helped these individuals get a job and get back into life, and over 70% of them never have any problem going back to jail or drugs, better than any government program that you could think of. But it's not only changed their lives, but it's changed the community. It's made it safer. The retailers there have started paying these guys to clean up in front, because just their being there and their attitude has made the whole neighborhood nicer. But what it's done more than anything else, and you could tell it sitting in this meeting, where you had the guys in blue and you had a bunch of us in suits, white, black, everyone mixed together. It was a fellowship that was so warm, and everyone was having so much fun. They were even making fun of people who'd been in jail. They made the chili was ex-con chili. And they were proud of the ex-con chili. They were proud of who they were. And after Antoine got up and gave his speech, one of his friends was just saying, my goal is to be able to do what he just did. And another one said, my goal is I now have a job and I think my girlfriend will marry me. And then all 30 of them got up in the front, and you could tell they all loved each other. And that's what we've been talking about a lot at Heritage, is when you put these small little platoons, as Burke used to call them, you put them together, it not only makes things work, but it makes us fall in love with each other and our country. To hear so many people talk about how they love Capitol Hill when not too long ago they were afraid to walk down the street. And they realized that this Men in Blue program had actually been like salt and light in the area. Just a few little sprinkles, a little bit of light had expanded in so many ways. And if you think of this story, the story's told millions of times all across the country in America today. It's not just about those who hit bottom and are in recovery. This idea of developing legitimacy is so important to who we are as human beings. And I've seen the same thing. I went to visit a charter school in Birmingham this year. It was in a blighted inner city area. It had been started by some folks who just wanted to help all of these at-risk kids have a chance. And I was amazed when I walked into the school. I asked them, why aren't there the big fences that I've seen in other places and barbed wire? And they said, no one would touch this school in this neighborhood, because all the moms are involved with it, the businesses are involved with it. And driving in, it was just like a disaster area until you got about a half mile from the school. And then you could see landscaping, you could see some green grass, you saw some businesses coming back. It was just a little salt and light. But what it was, these little platoons embody what America's all about. Because America is so exceptional because we've always been a ground-up country. We weren't a top-down, centrally managed, centrally planned country. America was millions of people making their own decisions about what they valued and what they wanted to do. And this incredible dynamic of all these individuals deciding what businesses to start, what to do in the community. De Tocqueville talked about it, that America just was all about these little associations of people deciding to solve problems for themselves. And by doing it, they made things better for everyone. And just as Adam Smith talked about in The Wealth of Nations, is when one person is trying to do something for themselves to build a better life, it can't help but help all of those around them. And without meaning to, that initiative, that entrepreneurship, is what builds the lives all around them. This is what so many people miss today, is that they're in Washington thinking that Washington can have a solution to something, when in fact, it is Washington and the policies that have destroyed a lot of the little platoons that make things work. The Men in Blue is just a recreation, a substitute for the problems with the destruction of the family and the neighborhoods that go after that. And we know, looking at federal policies, it has done everything that the federal government could do to destroy marriage and family, the work of churches and the work of communities. And the worse things get, the more people like President Obama are there talking about how we need more federal government to fix the thing. But we know the federal government can redistribute money, can redistribute income, can take from people who are successful or earning it and give it to those who are not. But we know the government cannot redistribute what Antoine Walker was talking about. We can't redistribute success or skills or dignity or the personal satisfaction that comes from achievement. You can't redistribute that. In fact, what we've seen over the years, no one can deny it, that when you give something to someone they haven't earned, it tends to destroy those things that they really need to be legit, to feel legit. Obama's going all around the country now trying to change the subject from Obamacare And he's again once attacking the 1%, trying to convince Americans that successful people are hurting the poor and threatening the middle class. It's such an absurd argument, it's hard to even address what he's doing. But he is trying to change the subject. He's wrong. All the research, all the data, all the facts say he's wrong. But we still have people who believe him. The frustrating thing for me is after hearing these men in blue talk, and I've heard the same thing from people all around the country who don't vote for conservatives. I mean, these guys were talking more conservative than any of you in this room about the need to do work, about the need to have families and marriage and the things that we talk about. They believed it now because they had lived it. But I can guarantee you, even though I don't know, that most of them would vote for President Obama today if they went out and voted, because they don't connect the things that make their life better, the policies that build a better country, with how they vote. And all around the country, groups like this are started by primarily people who think like we do, Republicans or conservatives who have this civic spirit, and they come and start these things, and we see the results of our ideas when they're employed. But somehow we have not made the connection with the people how do they vote to make life better. If you sat down with the men in blue and talked about these ideas that they believe in and said, would you vote for a candidate that believed those things? They would say, yeah. Would you vote for a Republican that believed those things? They would probably say no. And some of them would even say, no, would you vote for someone who calls themselves a conservative and believes those things? These labels have become very detrimental. There's so much baggage, and we have to change that. Well, how can we change it? How can we unite the country? There's a couple of things to consider right now. First of all, Obamacare has created a teachable moment for America. More and more people are seeing that they were lied to. And it's more personal than other things that have been destructive. The stimulus was very destructive. Dodd-Frank, probably more destructive than anyone could ever imagine, but it's not as personal. It's not touching people. But Obamacare is beginning to touch people where they can see it in dollars and cents. They can see it when the letter comes that they're losing their insurance. And it's really just gotten started. It's going to really get worse next year when employers, after their 1-year delay, start dropping plans, and people will really feel it then. But this is a way to help people understand that Obamacare is synonymous with liberal, progressive, Democrat policies. False promises and lies and things that don't work. The federal government cannot do these things. They can't even do a website, for heaven's sakes. Most teenagers can do a website. How can they run our health care plan? This is something that we can talk to people all over the country. And young people are starting to listen. If you get in front of them and you say, you know how we're going to make Obamacare work? We're going to get you to pay for health care you don't need so I can get the health care that I want. And they start, when you explain it to them, sometimes they don't understand how freedom works in our terms. The Constitution doesn't mean anything to them. Limited government, balanced budget, that doesn't mean anything to them. But you say, listen, how do you buy your songs now? Oh, I buy them iTunes. I go on the internet, I buy them. How would you like to have to buy 15 songs to get the 2 that you want? I mean, all of us had to do that growing up. We had to buy some. We had to go buy this. Some of you don't remember the term album, but you had to buy an album, and then you had to buy CDs. But now, I mean, it is just offensive to a lot of young people to say you need to buy this whole thing in order to get the 2 songs you want. And so you can look right back across the table at them and say, that's what Obamacare is. It's trying to get people to buy a lot of things they don't need instead of what they really want. So they understand freedom, but they just don't understand it in the same terms that we do. But what we have to do as conservatives, what you're doing as a group, what we're doing at Heritage, and believe me, I know from being in 60 or 70 cities the last 6 months, the whole country, the freedom-loving people, conservatives all over the country, are counting on Heritage to lead the effort to turn things around. That's the great burden we go to work with every day. All of these other conservative groups, the state policy think tanks, the Tea Parties, local Republican parties, all of them understand that the Republican Party cannot unite this country. I wish it were different, but we've talked with so many roundtables and focus groups around the country, with students, with single moms, Hispanics, African Americans, and the good news is they agree with us on just about everything we're talking about. The bad news is they're not going to vote for a Republican unless we can give them a better reason than we've given them in the past. And the way we win people is the way you do it in all areas of your life. You're not telling them they're wrong or that you're right. And we do that too much as conservatives because we know we're right, particularly at Heritage. I mean, we got more research to prove we're right than any place in the world. And so the tendency is just to explain a policy and how it's going to work how limited government is going to help you. We have to start at a different place. Where we always started in the advertising business is really what I grew up in, is we have to tell Americans that we want to make a better life for them. We want every American to have the opportunity to get their hand on the ladder of opportunity and climb as high as they can dream. We want them, their children, their families, and our country to be better. That's what we're doing. And we can help people understand, just in the terms that they understand it, that there are really three ways we can do that from a public policy perspective. We've got to have policies that create an economy that give you the opportunities to be prosperous, to have a job, to climb up that ladder. You've got to have policies that do that. People understand that you have to have a strong economy. You also have to have a strong society. You have to have strong families and neighborhoods and churches. You have to have an environment that's safe, where you can be encouraged, where if you don't have a father in your home, someone next door does. And you have to have public policies that encourage those things and not discourage them. That's not radical right social thinking. Everyone understands you need a strong society. And to protect it all, we need a strong America. If we want to stay out of wars, if we want to stop all the growth of nuclear weapons around the world that we see, we have to adopt Reagan's philosophy, which is if you're strong, you can maintain the peace. If you're strong, no one would dare attack your interest in America or anywhere in the world. So it's really, folks, we want your life to be better, and we can do it with a strong economy, a strong society, and a strong America. And we can start to help people understand some of the ideas that make those things work, but they generally know the things that make them work if you talk to them about it. So we can unite the country, and more we can package this in the old idea of federalism, which I simply call bringing freedom home. More and more with Obamacare and other things that have gone on in Washington, people are willing to nod their heads with you when you say the federal government can't solve all our problems. That the best way to make education work, to health care work, to have a more efficient highway system, to have more energy developed, is to move the decisions and the dollars out of Washington back to states, back to local communities, back to people and their families, to individual decision making. It's a whole idea, just bringing freedom home. It's the original idea of federalism in our Constitution, but we need to explain it to people in a way that they understand. We can unite the country, and if we do, as private citizens, outside the political framework, we can create a path that Republicans, if they choose to, can run on. The only election Republicans have won in the last 10 years, really, was 2010. And they had nothing to do with it. I can tell you, I was on the inside, but I was working on the outside. And the Republican leadership in Washington did not like or want anything to do with the Tea Party. And they vilified them, they mischaracterized them, but it was the big tent we needed. And it was focused on fiscal issues. 60% of them were evangelicals, but they weren't talking about faith. They weren't talking about morality. They were talking about stop the spending, the borrowing, the bailouts, and Obamacare, just this huge growth of government, And they were united. And in that group were people who'd never been involved with politics. They were Republicans, they were Democrats, recovering liberals, libertarians. I mean, it was a group that was made to build a majority party in America. And I know that the Republican leadership was then and is still threatened by that activist group. Now, they've been so maligned that the name is not going to work anymore. But the concepts behind it of a simple thematic platform can unite the country. And again, it goes back to a strong economy, a strong society, and a strong America.